Hey, how's it going everyone? So the new verified jobs were published a few weeks ago, and I know I'm kinda late with this one, but I still want to make a video about it. Because the races turned out to be somewhat disappointing, and that's why I decided to test them. And today I'm going to be testing the one that is called Rocket Carts, which is actually the only race that is available for the muscle class, so that's kind of interesting. And before we begin, I want to mention really quick that I'm going to be basing my judgment on 5 criteria, and the maximum number of points that I'm going to grant for one criteria is 5. So if it's 5, it's perfect, and if it's 0, it's obviously terrible. So the first criteria is originality and creativity, that is the original usage of the props. Then the second one is quality. This one is pretty clear. The third one is the race must work with every single car, no matter whether it's a stock or a custom car. Then the criteria number 4 is the use of environment, whether the creator uses the natural environment and the natural props and how it does that. And criteria number 5, which is subjective in my opinion, is going to be the design of the race, so we'll see how that goes. Now right off the bat, the first design flaw is this little sign on the road that shows you that you have to turn right, which is super obvious because there is a turn right in front of you and there's just no way to go. So in other words, an absolute waste of a prop. Then as soon as you come around the corner, there is that Vapid sign, which is again a complete waste of a prop. But on top of it, it's also probably the worst prop that you can possibly use in a race, because when you touch this prop with a car, it will completely stop you. So that's a design and a quality flaw at the same time. Now we have a section of a road with an obstacle, and right after this obstacle we have a little gap right before the tube. So let's recreate a situation in which I crash into the obstacle, which is something that is bound to happen to a lot of players in this game. So I crash into the obstacle, and obviously I'm not going to respawn, I'm going to continue the race from this point on. Let's see if I can make it over this gap. Now let's try one more time. I'm going to crash into the obstacle and continue racing from that point on. And it doesn't fucking work. So, in other words, this section of the road is broken, at least for this car. That is a major flaw in terms of quality and in terms of criteria number 3. Now we have this little section inside the tubes. Basically the creator wasn't able to connect the two tubes, I guess, and that created a gap. And if you drive on the bottom of the tube, as a lot of players do, and as you can see me doing right here, you are bound to fail, basically. So that's another quality flaw. And here we have a little design flaw. As you can see, the boost tubes are actually facing backwards instead of facing forward. So I guess the creator just didn't take enough time to test the race, and he simply didn't notice that. Then we have a raised platform sticking out inside the tube, which is definitely not supposed to be there in the first place. It's simply very poor building on the part of the creator. It looks messy, and on the top of it, it can also mess you up if you steer to the left a little bit too fast. Another quality flaw is this prop that people usually use as an entrance to the tube, but in our case the creator uses it as an exit from the tube, and as you can see here, it clips the bottom of my car and sends me flying. So in other words, if you have a car with low suspension, there are pretty good chances that you're gonna get messed up. Here we have one more boost tube that is facing backwards, and that's another design flaw. And not enough space to land here, so it's basically a quality flaw. And I'm only using a stock car. Oh, look at this, the racing track that he placed on the platform is a little bit too high, so the car with the low suspension has pretty good chances of getting fucked up. Yeah, as you can see, it's sticking out a little bit too much. I guess the creator didn't have enough time to, to lower the track and sink it into the platform. Whatever, that's another quality flaw. Finally, we get to the section of the race that features benches. I'm not gonna make fun of the guy for, using fucking benches, but what I am gonna say is that, why benches? There are so many, I kind of understand what he was trying to do here. He was trying to block one section of the road on the left and then block another section of the road on the right after the turn. But why would you use a bench? There are so many cool props that you can use to do that, and a bench just seems the most random prop that you can use in this situation. Now we're gonna test a van, which you can actually customize. A van as original model works. So once again, I'm gonna recreate a situation in which I crash into the sign, and I will continue the race from this point on. Let's see if I can make it over the gap. Something tells me that I won't be able to. And, as to be expected, this custom van does not have enough speed. And we have the same problem with this prop, which is funny because this van doesn't even have a low suspension. Oh, this is interesting. So I was driving full speed from the respawn point in the tube, and I did not have enough speed to make it over the fire loop. Okay, well, I mean, let's try it again. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I did something wrong. So once again, driving full speed from the respawn point. Well, that just doesn't work, I guess. Well, maybe that's how the creator intended to be. I don't know. But that's gonna be a minus in my book. So what it means is that this checkpoint is broken for this particular vehicle. And finally I'm gonna test a Nightshade, which is actually not the worst car in the muscle category in terms of performance. Okay, let me try and respawn here, see if this checkpoint works with this car. Oh wow, look at this. I'm stuck, I cannot move forward. Yo, you cannot make it up. By driving forward at full speed, I'm actually going backwards. Look at this. Dude, I'm gonna burn my tires I keep doing this. So yeah, that pretty much disqualifies criteria number 3. As you can see, the race does not work with every single car, clearly. Actually, it doesn't work with multiple cars. I only tested 3 muscle cars and all of them had problems. What's happening here is that the angle of the tube is just too much for the acceleration of this car to handle, so yeah, look at this. Doesn't matter if I respawn. So if you use this car and you respawn at this checkpoint or the next checkpoint, you're basically out of the race. You lost. That's it. The race is over for you. I guess the only way to continue is, you know, to go down all the way down to the beginning of the tube and try driving from there. I tested a few supercars as well, and the first thing that I want to note is that the turns in the tubes are executed so poorly that they just don't work well with fast cars, meaning that, you know, sometimes there is a gap right after the turn, sometimes there is just not enough space in between the turns, and you don't have enough time to react when you're driving full speed, and sometimes there is a freaking boost right in front of the turn and then a boost after the turn that mess you up. For example, here I'm driving so fast that the additional boost actually sends me flying and there is nothing I can do, since I cannot adjust my car mid-air. At this section of the road, the supercars are so fast that the ramp actually sends me flying right into the obstacle and there is absolutely nothing that I can do about it. Because the way it's supposed to be designed is that there should be enough space in between the ramp and the obstacle for me to land and then have a couple of seconds to dodge left or right, but there is simply not enough space in between the ramp and the obstacle. In other words, it has nothing to do with my skills or my experience, it just basically depends on luck. And finally, I want to mention the jump through the fire loops that can really cost you a race, and that's simply because the creator did not provide for enough landing space, and if you steer a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right on the ramp, you might end up flying off the track, which actually happened to me quite a few times. So now let's take a look at the overall results. In terms of originality and creativity, I've seen absolutely nothing original, no creative usage of the props, so I can give him a single point for that. Although, you know what, on a second thought, I am gonna give him 1 point for using those benches, because to be honest, I've never seen a random bench in the middle of a track before, so I guess that's somewhat original. Criteria number 2, quality. As you can see, there are a lot of flaws and there are some major flaws, so again, that's a disqualification, 0 points. When it comes to criteria number 3, like I already said, that's a disqualification. The race does not work with multiple cars, so that's 0 points. The usage of natural environment and natural props. There is absolutely none of it because the whole race takes place in the sky, so that's 0 points. And finally, criteria number 5, the design. Like I already said, that's a very subjective criteria. However, I did find a few design flaws here and there, but I'm gonna give him 2 points out of 5. So this race gets 3 points out of 25. And then I want to say that this is a fine race when you play it with your friends and a couple of randoms. But the thing is that there are levels in between a fine race made for your friends and a verified stunt race. And there are levels in between the standards that apply to those two races. For example, those boosts that were facing the wrong way. It might seem as a nitpicking when you look at this race as a random stunt race that you play with your friends. But when you're judging it as a verified stunt race, now that's a whole different story. And now I do have to pay attention to this kind of flaws. So hopefully this logic makes sense for you. But leave me your opinion on this race in the comment section below, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.